إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Alhamdulillah, we're now going to cover the ism from perspective of whether it's mufrad, muthanna, or jama'. So now it can either be mufrad, muthanna, or jama'. The mufrad is what indicates one thing, whether it's masculine or feminine. Muhammad kitabun. The jama' is what indicates more than two things. ما دل على أكثر من اثنين أو اثنتين. For example, Muhammaduna and kutub. So this is indicating something that's more than two things. So three and up. Three and up. And then you have the مثنى which is ما دل على اثنين واثنتين بزيادة ألف ونون أو ياء ونون is what indicates two things by you adding an alif and a noon or a ya and a noon, depending on the Arab, right? So Muhammadani or Muhammadaini and Kitabani or Kitabaini. Okay, these are things that are very simple, right? Now, that being the case, the word that's jama', we know that there are two types of jama' in the Arabic language. You have jama' taksir and you have jama' salim. Jama' taksir is a broken plural, okay, and this is when the singular form of the word is broken in order to create its plural pattern. ويدل على أكثر من اثنين مع عدم سلامة بناء مفرده. Okay, so kitabun becomes kutubun, qalamun becomes aqlamun, baytun becomes buyutun. نعم. Then you have جمع السالم which is ما يدل على أكثر من اثنين مع سلامة بناء مفرده, which is what indicates more than two things but the singular form of the word stays intact. So all you're doing here is you're adding something at the end of the word. It's similar to English, right? Some words, in fact most words in the English language, the way that you're going to make it plural is by adding an S to it, right? Teacher, teachers, house, houses. So جمع السالم is pretty much the equivalent to that in the Arabic language, right? And then it can be further classified into جمع مذكر or جمع مؤنث, right? So جمع مذكر سالم is بزيادة واو ونون أو ياء ونون, is when you're going to add a waw noon or a ya noon depending on the Arab. So muslimuna, muslimina. So here we see that the singular form of the word, which is Muslim, stayed the same. I just added a waw noon at the end, just like I would add a s to the word teacher or house. Then you have جمع on the salim, which is the sound feminine plural, which is by زيادة ألف وتاء, which is when you add a alif and a ta at the end of the word. So muslimah becomes muslimatun, right? Mudarrisatun becomes mudarrisatun, and the list goes on. طيب, so this is very simple. These are things that usually anybody will learn when they start learning the Arabic language. Now, that being the case, there are other words in the Arabic language, guys, that can indicate and have the meaning of jama'. Okay, so there are أسماء تدل على أكثر من اثنين أو اثنتين وليست جموعة. There are certain words that their pattern is not going to be any of these patterns here. It's not going to be a jama' taksir. It's not going to be a jama' salim. But it will have the meaning of plural. It will indicate, it'll have the same meaning as a plural noun, even though it doesn't have any of the forms of a plural noun, which is either jama' taksir or jama' salim, regardless of mudhakkar or mu'annath. طيب, and these are ism jama' and also ism jins and jama'. Okay, and this is where these terms, they can get confusing somebody, so you really have to pay attention here to understand the difference between all these different ism jama', ism faradi, and so on and so forth. So اسم الجمع is ما تضمن معنى الجمع ولا واحد له من لفظه. اسم جمع is a word that has the meaning of a plural, but it has no singular form. For the word, for example, the word قوم, the word nisa. More specifically, this word here, it doesn't have a singular form that looks like it, that has the same wording as it. So قوم means people, right? So people, that has the meaning of plural, right? When I say these people are in the house, you understand al-qawm fil bayt. You understand that qawm here has the meaning of plurality. It's not one person I'm speaking about. I say al-qawm fil bayt, right? And at the same time, there's no singular form of qawm. Like what's the quote unquote singular version of the word qawm? It doesn't really exist. You can say mar'un, a man. You can say imra'a, a woman, right? But that's not that's not the same wording as qawm. A clear example is nisa. Nisa means woman, plural. What's the singular form of nisa? Mar'a. Mar'a is a completely different word. So nisa is the ism jama' because number one, tadamana ma'a jama'. It has the meaning of a word that is indicating plurality. And number two, la wahida lahu min nawfi. It has no singular form that's on the same form. It has a singular equivalent, which is mar'atun, right? Or imra'a, I should say. But imra'a is not on the same, it's not the same word as nisa. It's completely different names here. Completely different wording. So this is what the ism jama' is. On the other hand, you also have something called ismun jinsin jama'. which is ما تضمن معنى الجمع دالا على الجنس ويفرق بين المفرد والجمع بتاء أو ياء. اسم جنس الجمع is ما تضمن معنى الجمع is what indicates plurality دالا على الجنس, and it's doing so by referring to the general genius, to the general yani type of thing that it's referring to. Like for example, shajar, trees, right? Shajar, trees. Okay. When I say there are trees outside, that's indicating plurality, and it's also indicating al-jins. I'm referring to the general genius, the general idea of trees. طيب. And then number three is يفرق بين المفرد والجمع. The way that here you're going to differentiate between the real singular form and the quote-unquote plural form is by either a ta or a ya. شجرة, the plural form is shajar. تمرة, the plural form is tamar. And you have many other examples like this. So all these words that you find like this where its plural version is done by you dropping the ta that was originally in the word shajaratun, tamaratun, shajar, tamarun. طيب, is going to be ism jins and jama because it's indicating plurality, tamarun, dates, shajar, trees, and it's doing it in a way that you're just referring to the genus. And then likewise, you're differentiating between its singular form and its plural form by a ta or by a ya, like Arabiyyun and Arab. Arabiyyun means the Arab, singular. Arab means the general idea of Arabs, right? So it's a ism jins, it's a ism jins al jama because number one, it's indicating al jama plurality and in a very general sense, bin jins. And then number two, the way I'm differentiating between its singular form and its plural form, quote unquote, is with a ya. When the ya is there, I'm indicating one specific person. When I remove that ya, it's indicating plurality in a general way. طيب? So this is the difference between ism jama' and ism jama', and both of them are asma that indicate more than two things, but they're not jumu'an. They're not considered as being plurals because they don't follow any of these patterns here. طيب? Now, if you've understood that, then we also have something else, which is called ism jins al-ifradi. Okay, ism jins al-ifradi. You're going to hear this term also. So what's the difference between ism jins al-jama' and ism jins al-ifradi? طيب. اسم جنس and جمع we just covered it, right? ما تضمن معنى جمع دال عن جنس ويفرق بين مفرد وجمع بتاء ورياء. طيب. عربي عرب شجرة شجر. اسم جنس الإفرادي is هو ما دل على الكثير والقليل من الجنس. اسم جنس الإفرادي is a word that indicates something regardless of whether it's a lot or a little. When I say ma, water, that could refer to an entire pool or it could refer to the cup in the water in my cup, right? The word ma, okay, is ismun jins al-ifradi because it could indicate a lot or a little min al-jins from this general idea of water, right? There's water outside. That can mean there's a bunch of water, that can mean there's a little bit of water. Yeah. Asal is also an example of this, honey. When I say the word asal, it could mean a lot, it could mean a little. When I say laban, it could mean a lot, it could mean a little. So these are words that are considered ismun jins al-ifradi. They indicate كثير and قليل من الجنس. They just indicate يعني the genius of this idea, the general idea of this thing, water, regardless of whether it's a lot of water or little water. Okay? So this is what اسم الجنس الإفرادي is. So this is the difference between these different terms. Okay? So recapping, okay, in the Arabic language, you can either have an ism that's mufrad, muthanna, or jama', right? Muthanna is what indicates two things. Jama' is what indicates more than two things. By the way, there are some scholars of the Arabic language that took the opinion that al-jama', plural, also includes two. It's like some scholars of the Arabic language said when you use the plurality, okay, al-jama' like Muhammadun or Kutub, that could refer to two things or more. While most scholars of the Arabic language, they took the opinion that no, al-jama' is what indicates more than two things, so three and up. Ala kullin. Going back to the point, that ism in the Arabic language can either be mufrad, muthanna, or jama'. Most of the scholars have said that muthanna is what indicates two things, jama' is what indicates more than two things, and then mufrad indicates one thing. The word that's jama', it can have different patterns. It can either be jama' taksir or jama' salim. Jama' taksir is when the word's broken in order to create its plural pattern. Jama' salim is when the singular form stays the same when you're creating its plural pattern. and it stays the same because all you're doing is either adding a waw noon or a ya noon depending on the i'raf for Jam'u Mudhakkar Salim, or you're adding an alif and a ta for Jam'u Muannath Salim. طيب. Obviously this is referring to a word that is مثنى على قول. طيب. That being said, there are other words in the Arabic language that can indicate more than two things. That can indicate like plurality, but they don't follow any of these patterns. طيب. And these are number one, اسم الجمع. طيب, which is for example قوم نساء. اسم الجنس الجمع, for example شجرة شجر, عربي عرب, more specifically here شجر and عرب. And then we also have something called اسم الجنس الإفرادي, which just indicates the general idea of the thing you're referring to, regardless of whether it's a lot of it or a little of it, like ma. If you understood this, alhamdulillah, you understood the lesson.
إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين